Hello everyone, this is Dr. Ilyas from the Department of Education, Hazara University, Mansehra. In some of my previous presentations, I discussed the definition of reflective practice and the meaning of reflective practice. The current presentation is actually aimed at thinking about the usefulness of reflective practice for practitioners in general, and especially for practitioners in teaching or for teachers, uh, and more specifically for the usefulness of reflective practice in the context of teacher education. As you already know, there are a number of proponents and a number of academics who have worked in the field of reflective practice and who have worked on the complexities of this interesting topic. In this current presentation is actually based on the usefulness that some of these authors, some of these academics and researchers have identified in terms of the usefulness of reflective practice or reflection. So let's see. We begin with one of the pioneering pioneer academic, John Dewey, who is one of those academics who have come up with very fundamental definitions of reflective practice. So John Dewey's take on the reflection or reflective practice represents the rational or scientific approach towards reflection. And so John Dewey has associated reflection in terms of its usefulness with a number of characteristics and a number of aptitudinal characteristics that reflective practice can actually develop among those who practices or among the reflective practitioners. And so these include the aptitude of open-mindedness, responsibility, and wholeheartedness. Open-mindedness actually means being open to all possibilities in the process of understanding a situation. And similarly, consideration of consequences of one's action is something that John Dewey relates to the second characteristic of the that actually is responsibility. So reflective practitioners are people who will take responsibilities for their, not just for their actions, but also for the consequences towards which those actions actually lead. And the third one is the wholeheartedness. That actually means reflective practice is important and is useful because it helps the reflective practitioner in developing their holistic view about phenomena. So overall, it develops a thinking demeanor and it actually guards against impulsive action. So this is one of the ways in which this pioneering philosopher of reflective thinking and reflective practice has actually identified the usefulness of reflective practice. Then we move to another very significant contributor to the thought of and to the philosophy of reflective practice, and that's Sean, whose two very important books that he wrote 1983 and 1987, has come up with the usefulness of reflection in terms of its artistic or intuitive approach. So, according to him, reflection is more as an intuitive or artistic process than a rational scientific process. So, the usefulness of intuitive reflection in action in comparison to the technical rationality is something that Sean has come up with. This is a concept that is closer to the technical rationality concept of reflection is closer to Dewey's philosophy of scientific rationalism. So there is a clear distinction between Dewey's scientific reflection and Sean's artistic reflection, which actually is based on something where the focus of reflection is on the practitioners or the practice rather than the scientists or the scientific inquiry of phenomena. In the artistic sense of reflection, reflection is useful because it helps the practitioners in thinking about their actions in a practical sense, in whether they are classroom teachers or whether they are practitioners in other fields. Reflection is something that helps the practitioners in thinking about and reflecting about their actions in action while they are performing, or when they are doing that action, they are thinking about it. And so there is this more intuitive side to reflection that makes people more reflective or more thoughtful about their actions while they are doing that action. So this is another angle to the usefulness of reflection. Then Lottenberg and Burgeon are two other writers who have come up with reflection in terms of its usefulness in bringing actually things into its and understanding things into their context. So they argue that reflection is something that happens the reflective persons, that helps the reflective person in three different ways. And it depends on the usefulness of reflection will be contextual and will depend on its particular use in particular programs and the orientations that are actually there in that particular program. So like person-oriented programs are programs where the focus is on the personal growth and the psychological maturation of teachers or practitioners. So there the focus of reflection or the usefulness of reflection will be evaluated in terms of the personal growth or the personal and psychological development that can happen, that can occur to the practitioners and teachers. And the second one is in terms of the acquisition of technical competence skills. So if there are particular programs, whether they are teacher education programs or whether they are programs for the development of other practices, the behavior-oriented programs will be actually the usefulness of reflection in those will be measured or will be evaluated in terms of the acquisition of particular technical skills and competence skills. And the third angle in which these two authors have actually looked at the usefulness of reflection is in the development of a research-oriented or inquisitive teaching attitude, which concerns the teaching profession in general. So, generally speaking, if the concern of particular teacher education program is actually the teaching profession in general, in thinking about and developing a more reflective attitude towards teaching in general, this is something that will come in the fold of this third category in terms of the usefulness of reflection, and that is concerns the teaching profession in general. And so they call it the inquisitive teaching attitude. So teachers who develop this inquisitive teaching attitude will be people who will be thinking about the teaching profession in a more thoughtful manner in general. And then we move to Farrell, 2007, who has come up with a number of ways in which he has associated the phenomena of reflection or reflective practice with certain benefits and certain usefulness, certain ways in which it is useful for reflective practitioners. And so, according to him, reflective practice frees people and practitioners and teachers from routine and impulsive actions. And so they go beyond routines, and they develop a more thinking attitude towards their practices and their professions. Then informed decision making and confidence. This is another thing that reflective practice brings to practitioners and teachers, is that in their decision making, their classroom decision making, or their practice decision making is based on, is more informed, is more reflective, and so they could be more confident of making those decisions. Then it helps, reflective practice helps developing strategies for change and intervention. So if the teachers or practitioners are interested in bringing about change, or bringing about intervention, this is something that will help them in developing those strategies that can lead to change and intervention. And then recognition as professionals. This is something that Farrell associates with the concept of reflective practice. So reflective practitioners will be recognized as more as professionals, because professionals are people who are someone who not only apply knowledge, but they are actually develop their knowledge, and so their attitude towards their profession, towards their practice, is something like more as the professionals rather than just implementers. And the last thing is that it is cathartic. Cathartic in a sense that it gives an opportunity to the practitioners and teachers in this particular context to be reflective about their practice and to think about the frustrations that they might come up, that they might face during the practice in different ways. And so reflection actually provides practitioners with this catharsis related to the challenges that they might face during the practice, and related to the possible frustrations that they might face during their practice. And so a reflection, in a way, in that sense, is quite a cathartic process. So overall, in conclusion, we can say that schools and societies are constantly changing. And so with reference to Knowles, 1993, so this is a quote from his paper on this particular concept. And so he says, the author here says that schools and society are constantly changing, and teachers need to be reflective in order to cope effectively with changing circumstances. This actually sums up the whole concept of reflection, in a sense that it is useful because it helps the teachers in adopting and adapting according to changes in the situation and the circumstances. So the teachers or any other practitioners are not just stuck in traditional practices, but they can actually adapt according to the circumstances and can change. Then educational training programs cannot prepare new teachers for a variety of situations. So evolving idiosyncratic nature of human behavior in educational contexts. This is something related to that quote by Knowles, 1993. And it is that reflection is useful because it helps and it can help teachers and practitioners in preparing themselves for new situations, for kind of maybe unexpected situation inside and outside their practice and their practicums and their classrooms. And so reflective practice helps teachers and other practitioners in coping with circumstantial issues that arise during their professional practice. So overall, the impact of reflective practice is actually that it makes the practitioners more thoughtful, more independent, more creative, and in a way more confident in terms of making decision in their practical classroom situations or in their practical work wherever or in whatever field these practitioners work. So this is just a brief summary of the regarding the usefulness of reflection or reflective practice. And so if you have comments or questions, please share those comments and questions in the comment section. Thank you very much. Take care. Bye.